mathematical, algebraical, and geometrical characters. Plus or more is the sign of real existence of the quantity it stands before and is called an affirmative or positive sign. It is also the mark of addition. Thus, a plus b, or 6 plus 9, implies that a is to be added to b, or 6 added to 9. Minus or less, before a single quantity, is the sign of negation or negative existence, showing the quantity to which it is prefixed to be less than nothing. But between quantities, it is the sign of subtraction. Thus, a minus b, or 8 minus 4, implies b subtracted from a, or 8 after 4 has been subtracted. Equal, the sign of equality, though Descartes and some others use this mark, infinity. Thus, a equals b signifies that a is equal to b. Wolfius and some others use the mark equals for the identity of ratios. X, into or with, the sign of multiplication, showing that the quantities on each side the same are to be multiplied by one another, as axb is to be read a multiplied into b. 4x8, the product of 4 multiplied into 8. Wolfius and others make the sign of multiplication a dot between the two factors. Thus 7.4 signifies the product of 7 and 4. In algebra, the sign is commonly omitted, and the two quantities put together. Thus BD expresses the product of B and D. When one or both of the factors are compounded of several letters, they are distinguished by a line drawn over them. Thus the factum of a plus b minus c into d is wrote dx. Superscript a plus b minus c. Leibniz, Wolfius, and others distinguish the compound factors by including them in a parenthesis. Thus, parentheses a plus b minus c, end parenthesis, d. Divisor, by, the sign of division. Thus a divisor b denotes the quantity a to be divided by b. Wolfius makes the sign of division 2 dots. Thus 12:4 denotes the quotient of 12 divided by 4 equals 3. If either the divisor or dividend, or both, be composed of several letters, for example, a plus b divided by c, instead of writing the quotient like a fraction. Involution, the character of involution. Evolution, the character of evolution, or the extracting of roots. Greater than are signs of majority. Thus, a greater than b expresses that a is greater than b. Less than are signs of minority, when we would denote that a is less than b. Sideways S is the character of similitude used by Wolfius, Leibniz, and others. It is used in other authors for the difference between two quantities, while it is unknown which is the greater of the two. Four dots, so is. The mark of geometrical proportion disjunct, and is usually placed between two pair of equal ratios, as 3:6, 4 dots, 4:8, shows that 3 is to 6 as 4 is to 8. colon or 3 dots is an arithmetical equal proportion as 7.3 colon 13.9, i.e. 7 is more than 3 as 13 is more than 9. Square, quadrat, or regular quadrangle as follows. Quadrat AB equals quadrat BC, i.e. the quadrangle upon the line AB is equal to the quadrangle upon the line BC. A triangle, as triangle ABC equals triangle ADC. An angle, as angle ABC equals angle ADC. Perpendicular, as AB perpendicular BC. Rectangled parallelogram, or the product of two lines. Two vertical lines, the character of parallelism. Equiangular or similar. Equilateral. Right angle. Tiny circle denotes a degree, thus 45 tiny circle implies 45 degrees. Apostrophe, a minute, thus 50 apostrophe is 50 minutes. 2 apostrophes, 3 apostrophes, 4 apostrophes denote seconds, thirds, and fourths, and the same characters are used where the progressions are by tens, as it is here by 60s. The mark of geometrical proportion continued implies the ratio to be still carried on without interruption, as 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64 geometrical proportion are in the same uninterrupted proportion. Root, irrationality, the character of a squared root, and shows, according to the index of the power that is set over it or after it, that the square, cube, or other root is extracted, or to be extracted. Thus, root 16, or root 216, or root parentheses 2 end parentheses 16 is the square root of 16. 3 root 25, the cube root of 25, etc. M dash colon, the differences, or excess. Capital Q or lowercase q, a square. Capital C or lowercase c, a cube. Capital Q, the ratio of a square number to a square number. Celestial and astronomical signs. The 12 signs of the zodiac: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. The 9 planets: Saturnus, Jupiter, Mars, Earth, Venus, Mercurius. Georgium and Cetus, Ceres, Pallas, Juno, Vesta, Sun, Moon. 7 of the planets sometimes imply the 7 days of the week. Dies Solis, Sunday. Dies Lunae, Monday. Dies Martis, Tuesday. Dies Mercurii, Wednesday. Dies Jovis, Thursday. Dies Veneris, Friday. Dies Saturni, Saturday. The dragon's head, or ascending node, and the dragon's tail, or descending node, are the 2 points in which the eclipses happen. The aspects. Conjunctio happens when 2 planets stand under each other in the same sign and degree. Oppositio happens when 2 planets stand diametrically opposite each other. Trigonus happens when 1 planet stands from another 4 signs, or 120 degrees, which make 1/3 part of the ecliptic. Quadro happens when 2 planets stand 3 signs from each other, which make 90 degrees, or the 4th part of the ecliptic. Sextile is the 6th part of the ecliptic, which is 2 signs and make 60 degrees. New moon, 1st quarter of the moon. Full moon, last quarter. Physical signs and abbreviations. RX stands for recipe or take. Macron A, AA of each alike quantity. LB, a pound. Macron 3, an ounce. 3, a dram. Backwards E, a scruple. J stands for 1, IJ for 2, and so on. Sharp S signifies semi or half. GR, period, denotes a grain. 1 pound makes 12 ounces. 1 ounce contains 8 drams. 1 dram is equal to 3 scruples. 1 scruple consists of 20 grains. 1 grain has the weight of a barleycorn. P period stands for particular, a little part, and means so much as can be taken betwixt the ends of 2 fingers. PAEQ stands for part equal, or equal parts. QS, quantum sufficit, or as much as is sufficient. QP, quantum placit, or as much as you please. SA, secundum artem, or according to art. The Hebrew alphabet. A, Aleph. B, Beth. G, Gimel. D, Daleth. H, He. V or U, vow. V or DS, Zain. CH or HH, Teth. T or TH, Teth. J, I or Y, Jod. K or CH, Kaf. L, Lamed. M, Mem. N, Nun. S, Samek. GN, Ein. P, PH or F, F. TZ or TS, Sade. Q or K, Kof. R, Resch. SH or S, Shin. TH or T, Tau. Final letters. Kaf, Mem, Nun, F, Tzada. Letters that have a likeness to others. Beth, Kaf. Gimel, Nun, Daleth, Kaf, Resh, He, Cheth, Tau, Vau, Zain, Jod, Nun. Teth, Mem, Mem, Samek, Ein, Sade. Hebrew words never being divided, the following are cast broad and are used at the end of lines, namely Aleph, He, Lamed, Mem, Tau. The Greek alphabet: Alpha, A, Beta, B, Gamma, G, Delta, D, Epsilon, E short, Zeta, Z, Eta, E long, Theta, TH, Iota, I, Kappa, K, C, Lambda, L, Mu, M, Nu, N, Xi, X, Omicron, O short, Pi, P, Rho, R, Sigma, S, Tau, T, Upsilon, U, Phi, PH, Chi, CH, Psi, PS, Omega, O long. The Saxon alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, Win, X, Y, Z, and TH, that. A common Hebrew case: Hebrew uppercase, Hebrew lowercase. Note: the boxes on the left-hand side of this case contain spaces and quadrats for justifying the points. Greek uppercase, Greek lowercase, common uppercase, common lowercase, improved font uppercase, improved font lowercase. Pressman's Scale of Prices, March 1st, 1810. Folios on medium or demi, not exceeding 52 pica Ms upon small pica and upwards. 1,000 and upwards, 5. 750 and 500, 5.5. 250, 6. If on long primer, bourgeois or brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 5.5. 750 and 500, 6. 250, 7. All above 52 pica Ms upon small pica and upwards, 1,000 and upwards, 5.5. 750 and 500, 6. 250, 7. If on long primer, bourgeois or brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 6. 750 and 500, 6.5. 250, 7. Long primer and upwards on copy or crown, 1,000 and upwards, 5. 750 and 500, 5.5. 250, 6. Quartos, on medium or demi, not exceeding 40 pica Ms upon long primer and upwards, 1,000 and upwards, 5. 750 and 500, 5.5. 250, 6. If on bourgeois or brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 5.5. 750 and 500, 5.5, 250, 6. All above 40 pica M's and not less than long primer, 1,000 and upwards, 5.5, 750 and 500, 5.5, 250, 7. If on bourgeois or brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 6, 750 and 500, 6, 250, 7. Brevier and upwards on copy or crown, 1,000 and upwards, 5, 750 and 500, 5.5, 250, 6. Octavos on medium or demi, not exceeding 24 pica M's upon small pica and upwards, 1,000 and upwards, 5, 750 and 500, 5.5, 250, 6. If on long primer, bourgeois or brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 5, 750 and 500, 5.5, 250, 7. All above 24 pica M's on brevier or upwards, 1,000 and upwards, 5.5, 750 and 500, 6, 250, 7. If less than brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 6, 750 and 500, 6.5, 250, 8. Brevier and upwards on copy or crown, 1,000 and upwards, 5, 750 and 500, 5.5, 250, 6. 12s on medium or demi, not exceeding 21 pica M's upon long primer and upwards, 1,000 and upwards, 5, 750 and 500, 5.5, 250, 7. If on bourgeois or brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 5.5, 750 and 500, 6, 250, 7. All above 21 pica M's upon long primer and upwards, 1,000 and upwards, 5.5, 750 and 500, 7, 250, 8. If on bourgeois or brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 6, 750 and 500, 7, 250, 8. Long primer, bourgeois or brevier on copy or crown, 1,000 and upwards, 5, 750 and 500, 5.5, 250, 7. 18s. If not less than small pica, 1,000 and upwards, 5, 750 and 500, 5.5, 250, 7. If on long primer, bourgeois or brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 5.5, 750 and 500, 6, 250, 7. If less than brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 6, 750 and 500, 7, 250, 8. 24s and 32s, if not less than small pica, 1,000 and upwards, 5.5, 750 and 500, 6, 250, 7. If on long primer, bourgeois or brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 6, 750 and 500, 7, 250, 8. If less than brevier, 1,000 and upwards, 6.5, 750 and 500, 8, 250, 9. Pocketbooks, octavo. Post or crown, 21 pica M's wide, 35 long, 1,000 and upwards, 5, 750 and 500, 6, 250, 7. 12s. Pot, such as ladies' and Christian ladies' table part. 5 mo, 35 pica, m's wide, 26 long. 1,000 and upwards, 5. 750 and 500, 6. 250, 7. Pot, such as ladies and Christian ladies' miscellany part, 16 pica, m's wide, 26 long. 1,000 and upwards, 5. 750 and 500, 6. 250, 7. Copy, Christian gentlemen's, 20 wide, 35 long. 1,000 and upwards, 5. 750 and 500, 6. 250, 7. School books, 12s. Copy or crown, not exceeding 17 pica m's wide and 31 long, not less than brevier. 1,000 and upwards, 5. 750 and 500, 6. 250, 7. Octavo. Copy or crown, not exceeding 21 pica m's wide, nor less than long primer. 1,000 and upwards, 4 3/4. 750 and 500, 5 1/2. 250, 6. Nota bene. School books on copy or crown are defined to be Palairet's French grammar, Chambeau, Salisbury's spelling book, Fox's lessons, Ward's Latin grammar, and all of a similar description. Bills in Parliament, from 4 to any number under 100, 4 1/2 pence. If 100 and under 200, 5 pence. If 200 or 250, 5 1/2 pence. Above 250 and under 400, 4 1/2 pence. If 400 or 500, 5 pence. Above 500 and under 700, 4 1/2 pence. If 700 or 750, 5 pence. All above 750, 4 1/2 pence. Almanacs, royal broadsides, 7 pence. Demi-ditto size Wing or Cambridge, 5 1/2 pence. Goldsmith, calendar form, 5 1/2 pence. Ditto Prague, 5 pence. 12's demi, 19 wide, 34 long. Cal, 5 1/2 pence. Ditto Prague, 5 pence. Ditto Crown, size Rider, 5 pence. Octavo Foolscap, 20 wide, 24 long. Cal and Prague, 5 pence. Nota bene. Side notes to be reckoned in the width, bottom notes not to be regarded. Works on royal paper to be paid 1/2 penny per hour more than the above prices. Ditto on foolscap or pot, not less number than 1,000, and worked at 1 pull, 4 pence halfpenny. Ditto in square pages, like Entick's dictionary, and works for the public offices, to be advanced 1/2 penny per hour, on the scale of 1800. Fine paper of the same size, if included within the token, not to be charged extra, but if of a larger size, then to be paid according to the scale. 3 or more proofs pulled at one time to be charged 4 pence per form, and if made ready to be charged as a token. Cards, large or small, to be paid 6 1/2 pence per 100. Double crown or royal broadsides, not exceeding 100 number, to be paid 1 shilling 9 pence. If more than 100, to be paid 1 shilling per 100. Jobs without points, to be paid 4 1/2 pence per hour. Demi-broadsides, not more than 100, to be paid 1 shilling. Above 100, and not exceeding 500, to be paid 10 pence per 100. If above 500, to be paid after the rate of 1 shilling 9 pence per token. Broadsides requiring 3 pulls to be paid 1/3 more. No form to be deemed a broadside that comes in at 1 pull at the common press. Night work to commence and be paid for from 10 o'clock till 12, 1 shilling. All after to be paid 3 pence an hour extra till 6. Morning work, commencing at 4 o'clock, to be paid 1 shilling extra. Sunday work, if not exceeding 6 hours, to be paid 1 shilling. If for a longer time, 2 pence an hour. A table showing the price of any number of tokens from 1 to 20, at all the prices mentioned in the above scale. A table I am not reading. Plan of a press book. Column 1, when given out to wet. Column 2, names of works. Column 3, number. Column 4, signature. Column 5, date and hour when laid on. Column 6, number of press. After the overseer has entered into this book the account of the paper intended to be wet, he sets down the same articles with the numbers and date in a book called the wetting book. From this book the warehouseman receives his instructions for giving out the paper. It frequently happens in works of a large number that one sheet is laid on by 2 presses. When this is done, it is entered as the talisman in the annexed plan, namely, Signature E, the outer form was laid on November 5th, by the 6th press at 11 o'clock in the morning. The inner form, E2, was laid on November 6th, by the 2nd press at 9:30 in the morning. It may appear to some trifling and unnecessary to specify in this book the hour of the day the pressman lay on a form, but we would observe that it is of importance to the overseer, in his arrangements to provide for the presses, to be able to ascertain, by referring to the book, when they are likely to be off. This book also informs him of the quantity of wet paper and the length of time it has been wetted. This is of importance when authors sometimes detain proofs so long that the paper allotted for those sheets will mildew if it be not hung up to dry. Plan of a book for checking compositors' and pressmen's bills. The above plan will enable an overseer or employer, at a single glance, to discover if any, and what signatures are overcharged, the amount of corrections, and likewise by what pressmen the forms were worked at press. There being also a column left at the end of the table for him to enter down any observations which he may think necessary upon any of the items mentioned. As jobs cannot be entered in this book, and as it is here equally necessary to keep a check on the compositors and pressmen, as well as a regular account of this part of our business, we also submit a plan of a book for that purpose. Plan of the job book. The warehouse book. The warehouseman should first be provided with a book agreeable to the above plan, about the size of a foolscap quarto. When the porter or carman brings paper from the stationer or bookseller, the warehouseman should demand the bill before he discharges him, and if right, dismiss him, and enter it immediately into the warehouse book as above. A table showing the quantity of paper to be given out for any job, from 25 to 5,000. Note, the first column states the number to be given out, 25 sheets to the choir, allowing for waste. The figures at top specify the number on a sheet. Q and S stand for choirs and sheets. Abstracts of the acts relative to printers. We shall now present our readers with brief notices of the different Acts of Parliament which have been passed respecting printers, in order that the profession may know how far the several clauses affect them, with respect to whatever they may hereafter print. By the Act 13, George II, Chapter 19, to restrain and prevent the excessive increase of horse races, etc., it is enacted, that every person or persons who shall make, print, publish, advertise, or proclaim any advertisement, or notice of any plate, prize sum of money, or other thing of less value than £50 to be run for by any horse, mare, or gelding, shall forfeit and lose the sum of £100. By the Act 25, George II, Chapter 36, for the better preventing thefts and robberies, it is enacted that any person publicly advertising a reward with no questions asked for the return of things which have been stolen or lost, or making use of any such words in such public advertisement, etc., shall for every such offence forfeit £50. The Act 39, George III, Chapter 79, for the more effectual suppression of societies established for seditious and treasonable purposes, contains several provisions and penalties respecting printers, letter founders, and printing press makers. Section 23 enacts that from and after the expiration of 40 days from the day of passing this Act, every person having any printing press or types for printing shall cause a notice thereof, signed in the presence of and attested by one witness, to be delivered to the clerk of the peace acting for the county, stewarty, riding, division, city, borough, town, or place, where the same shall be intended to be used, or his deputy, according to the form prescribed in the schedule hereunto annexed. And such clerk of the peace, or deputy respectively, shall, and he is hereby authorized and required to grant a certificate in the form prescribed in the schedule hereunto annexed, for which such clerk of the peace or deputy shall receive the fee of 1 shilling, and no more. And such clerk of the peace or his deputy shall file such notice and transmit an attested copy thereof to one of his Majesty's principal secretaries of state, and every person who, not having delivered such notice, and obtained such certificate as aforesaid, shall, from and after the expiration of 40 days next after the passing of this Act, keep or use any printing press or types for printing, or having delivered such notice and obtained such certificate as aforesaid, shall use any printing press or types for printing in any other place than the place expressed in such notice, shall forfeit and lose the sum of £20. Section 24 exempts His Majesty's printers and the public presses belonging to the universities. Section 25 and 26 relate to type founders and press makers. Section 27 enacts that from and after the expiration of 40 days after the passing of this Act, every person who shall print any paper or book whatsoever shall be meant or intended to be published or dispersed, whether the same shall be sold or given away, shall print upon the front of every paper, if the same shall be printed on one side only, and upon the first and last leaves of every paper or book, which shall consist of more than one leaf, in legible characters, his or her name, and the name of the city, town, parish, or place, and also the name, if any, of the square, street, lane, court, or place, in which his or her dwelling-house, or usual place of abode shall be. And every person who shall omit so to print his name and place of abode on every such paper or book printed by him, and also every person who shall publish or disperse, or assist in publishing or dispersing, either gratis or for money, any printed paper or book which shall have been printed after the expiration of 40 days from the passing of this Act, and on which the name and place of abode of the person printing the same shall not be printed as aforesaid, shall, for every copy of such paper so published or dispersed by him, forfeit and pay the sum of £20. Section 28 exempts papers printed by authority of either House of Parliament. Section 29 enacts that every person who, from and after the expiration of 40 days after the passing of this Act, shall print any paper for hire, reward, gain, or profit, shall carefully preserve and keep 1 copy at least of every paper, so printed by him or her, on which he or she shall write or cause to be written or printed in fair and legible characters the name and place of abode of the person or persons by whom he or she shall be employed to print the same. And every person printing any paper for hire, reward, gain, or profit, who shall omit or neglect to write or cause to be written or printed as aforesaid the name and place of his or her employer, on one of such printed papers, or to keep or preserve the same for the space of 6 calendar months, next after the printing thereof, or to produce and show the same to any justice of the peace who, within the said space of 6 calendar months, shall require to see the same, shall, for every such omission, neglect, or refusal, forfeit and lose the sum of £20. Form of notice to be given to the clerk of the peace that any person keeps any printing press or types for printing. To the clerk of the peace for... Here insert the county, stewartry, riding, division, city, borough, town, or place, or his deputy. I, A.B. of somewhere, do hereby declare that I have a printing press and types for printing, which I propose to use for printing within somewhere, and which I require to be entered for that purpose, in pursuance of an Act passed in the 39th year of His Majesty King George III, entitled An Act for the more effectual suppression of societies established for seditions and treasonable purposes, and for better preventing treasonable and seditious practices. Witness my hand this something day of something, signed in the presence of someone. An Act was passed on the 10th of June, 1811, to amend and explain the above Act, by which it is enacted that nothing in the 27th section of the said Act contained shall extend to make any person or persons offending against the same liable to more than 25 forfeitures or penalties for printing, or publishing, or dispersing, or assisting in publishing or dispersing any number of copies of one and the same paper or book, contrary to the said section of the said Act. By the 2nd section of this Act, power is given to magistrates to mitigate the same to any sum not less than £5, with all reasonable costs incurred in the prosecution, and by the 4th section, persons convicted under this amended Act may, if they think themselves aggrieved, appeal to the quarter sessions, where the justices, if they see cause, may mitigate any penalty or penalties, and may order any money to be returned, which shall have been paid or levied under any conviction as aforesaid, and may also order and award such costs to be paid by either party to the other, as they shall think and judge reasonable. The Act 60, George III, Chapter 9, to subject certain publications to the duties of stamps upon newspapers, and to make other regulations for restraining the abuses arising from the publication of blasphemous and seditious libels. December 30, 1819. Section 1. All pamphlets and papers containing any public news, intelligence, or occurrences, or any remarks or observations thereon, or upon any matter in church or state, printed in any part of the United Kingdom for sale and published periodically, or in parts or numbers, at intervals not exceeding 26 days between the publication of any two such pamphlets or papers, parts or numbers, where any of the said pamphlets, etc., shall not exceed 2 sheets, or shall be published for sale for a less sum than 6d, exclusive of the duty, shall be deemed and taken to be newspapers, agreeable to the Act of the 38th George III, and subject to all the rules, etc., of all former acts regarding newspapers, etc. Section 2. No quantity of paper less than 21 inches in length and 17 in breadth to be deemed a sheet. Section 3. No cover or blank leaf upon which any advertisement or other notice shall be printed shall be deemed part of a pamphlet. Section 4. Publications of the above nature at intervals exceeding 26 days to be published on the first day of every calendar month, or within 2 days before or after, penalty £20. Section 5. The price and day of publication to be printed on all periodicals, penalty for omission £20. Persons liable to the above penalty for selling or exposing for sale any of the said publications for a less price than 6d. Section 6. Price not to extend to the allowance made to distributors who buy to sell again. Section 7. Pamphlets liable to the stamp duties, freed from all regulations respecting pamphlets. Section 8. Persons not to print or publish newspapers, etc., or pamphlets of 2 sheets or under, of the above description, without entering into recognizance or giving bond for securing fines upon conviction for libels, penalty £20. Section 9. If sureties pay any part of the money for which they are bound, or become bankrupts, new recognizance or bond with sureties must be given, penalty £20. Section 10. Sureties may withdraw from their recognizance upon giving 20 days previous notice in writing to the commissioners or distributors of stamps in the district, and also to the printer or publisher, sureties not to be liable after the expiration of such notice. Bond or new sureties to be given before any more numbers are published, for every such offence, penalty £20. Section 11. Bonds not subject to stamp duties. Section 12. Lists of recognizances to be sent to the commissioners of stamps 4 times a year, bonds within 10 days after the execution. Section 13. Extending the provisions of former acts relative to the delivery of newspapers, etc., to the commissioners of stamps. Penalty for neglect of delivery of such pamphlets or papers, £100. Section 14. Commissioners refusing to take any pamphlet or paper, to give, if required, a certificate of such refusal. Section 15. Persons selling papers, etc., not duly stamped, to be fined £20. Section 16. Recognizance, in case of libel, to be of good behaviour as well as to appear to answer. Section 17. Fines, penalties, etc., to be recovered by action of debt, bill, plaint, or information, etc., not more than £100 to be recovered before justices of the peace, for any penalty incurred in 1 day. Section 18. 2 or more justices to hear and determine offences committed against this Act, within the limitation of 3 months. Magistrates have power to mitigate penalties to 1/4. Reasonable costs, etc., must always be paid. Section 19. Persons refusing to appear and give evidence, when summoned, as witnesses, without satisfactory excuse to the magistrates, shall forfeit for each offence the sum of £20. Section 21. order or conviction of justices not to be removed into any court whatever, nor can the execution be superseded. Section 22. No action for penalties shall be commenced, but in the name of the Attorney General in England and Ireland, an advocate for Scotland, or some officer of the stamp duties. Section 23. Duties to be under the management of the Commissioners of Stamps. Section 24. Duties and discounts to be paid and allowed according to the provisions of former Acts. Section 26 contains the following exceptions: acts, etc., printed for government, school books, subjects on devotion, etc., daily accounts, bills of goods imported and exported, warrants and certificates for the delivery of goods, weekly bills of mortality, lists of prices current, state of the markets, accounts of the arrival and sailing of merchants' ships, etc., etc., provided they contain nothing more than the usual matter. Section 27. Reprinted works published in numbers, not chargeable with the stamp duty, provided that it had been printed 2 years and not first published in parts or numbers. A list of master printers. Addenda. Abstracted from the Scale of London Prices, recently issued by the London Union of Compositors. Headlines in a smaller type than body of work should be charged 1 shilling per sheet, and if any justification of figures, as extra allowance for the trouble. Diamond is paid 10 pence per thousand, close or leaded. Works in the Irish or German characters should be paid for as Greek without accents. Saxon works to be paid the same as Greek without accents. Appeal cases are cast up at 8 pence per thousand. If with broad quotation side notes, 3 shillings per sheet is charged. If with double narrow side notes, 5 shillings per sheet. But where the notes are unusually heavy, they are paid according to their value. Bills in Parliament. English, 26 ems wide by 47 ems long. Without side notes, 6 shilling. With broad quotation side notes, 9 shillings. With double narrow side notes, 10 shillings. Pica, 29 ems wide by 53 ems long. Without side notes, 7 shilling. With broad quotation side notes, 10 shillings. With double narrow side notes, 11 shillings. The following regulations are solely applicable to parliamentary work. All work for either House of Parliament, leaded or otherwise, to be cast up at 6.5 pence per thousand, from English to brevier inclusive, and always to be cast up according to the type in which it is composed. Tables to be charged 1 shilling 1 pence per thousand. Works not intended for either House of Parliament, but for the public departments, to be paid according to the scale for bookwork, with all the extras. Private parliamentary bills, 7 pence per thousand. Table matter, 1 shilling 2 pence. All reports, minutes of evidence, accounts, appendices, etc., to be cast up according to the type in which they are composed. Pages of 2 or 3 columns with 1 or more headings, or 3 columns without headings, to be charged tabular. Pages consisting of 4 or more columns with 1 or more headings, or 5 columns without headings, to be charged table, or double common matter. A table, or part of one, in the body of a report, etc., to be charged the depth of the table, from the head to the conclusion. Same rule to apply to tabular. Pages with 4 or 5 blank columns, 1 shilling per sheet. All read-over pages, as in Doctor and CR accounts of 2 pages, where 1 page only is tabular, or table, the same charge to be made for both pages. Side notes of broad quotations not exceeding 5 lines per page in quartos and folios, 1 shilling 6 pence per sheet. Double narrows not exceeding 5 lines per page, 2 shillings per sheet. Throughout any parliamentary report, appendix, etc., except when pages, comprising the whole width of the page, including the space for side notes, shall occur, all above to be paid according to value. Double side notes to be paid double the above sum, but reports, appendices, minutes of evidence, etc., are to be cast up separately, and the extras belonging to them to be charged. FINIS. That is the end of Cowie's Printer's Pocketbook and Manual by George Cowie.